Hey guys, it's Leigh with Still Raven Farms. On this podcast, we talk about the trials and errors, successes and wins on the homestead. We've been homesteading for the last several years, and I've been a gardener and canner for over a decade, on and off with gardening and canning for over a decade. As always, I need you guys to understand that I am learning, you are learning. You will never stop learning. It doesn't matter if you've been doing this for 100 years, you will always be learning something. And so take all of that into your homesteading journey, whether you've been doing this for 5 seconds or you've been doing this for 50 years, it doesn't matter. I'm always going to be a learner. I want you to always be a learner. And so we're going to kind of follow along on this journey together. Think of me as your partner in crime, your co-chaos creator, an ear to listen, and never, ever the voice of reason. Because I'm going to tell you to get the goats or the chickens or the ducks. Probably also give you some advice thrown in there as well. Today, we are talking about how to travel when you homestead. And what are some things that you guys can do to implement that appropriately for your farm specifically? Below the show notes, you're going to see a sign up for our newsletter. I highly encourage you to sign up for that so that way you can be alerted whenever we have new podcasts, new blog posts, and just kind of keep up with what we're doing on the homestead. You can also find all of our social media handles below as well. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would appreciate it greatly. So to dive right into this post, I was actually going to record it in a couple of weeks and decided that no, we probably should really go ahead and, get it done, get it loaded now, because people are traveling for the holidays, right? And so you're trying to figure out how in the world, because you had Thanksgiving at your house and now you've got to go over here, and how are you going to do that? Now, if you've been homesteading for more than a few minutes, you kind of have an idea of how you're going to make that work, right? You're only going to be gone from this time to this time. Or maybe you haven't been on vacation in 10 years because you don't have anybody that you can trust to watch your farm. So all of that being said, there's quite a few things that I always look for before we travel. Now, I think it'd been a little over a year that we had been on the homestead when we went to Yellowstone for a week. And it wasn't hard to do per se, but it did require a lot of legwork. Leaving to go anywhere for a week is pretty difficult, but then you turn around and you put into the fact that, we have 4 dogs, we have 2 cats. At the time, I think we had something like 10 goats. It's June, so it's starting to get hot. All of these things are kind of kicking into how to prepare to go. And usually, yes, I am very much the one that has, I'm packing myself, I'm packing the kids, I'm making sure the house is clean. And usually Jared is only responsible for handling himself. However, I was getting overwhelmed with the amount of things that I had to get done. And I looked at him and said, absolutely not, I need your help. So the biggest lifesaver that you will have on your homestead is a farm sitter. Okay, now who that is, what that looks like is going to look like something different for every single person. But I recommend very highly that you get and meet your farm sitter multiple times before they come to the property. I recommend having them come out the morning, for morning chores and evening chores, if that's how you have yours set up. Or, at least once or twice to have the dogs get to know them and be okay with them. Most of the time, farm animals are okay, provided that, they eat grass or, they don't have to be moved regularly or whatever. But it can be pretty intensive, especially when you travel in the summer and you've got the garden, you've got this, you've got that, you've got kidding season. It can be a lot. So the first thing that I always recommend is you get a solid farm sitter. Now, if you don't have a friend, if you don't have family, if you don't have anybody that can come help you, then you got to get a little creative. Right now, I was very lucky when we went to Yellowstone. A friend of mine from work, I put out, I was like, does anyone want a vacation with a cabin in the woods for a week? And she was like, I do. And, so it worked out very well, but other times it's not going to work out that well. You may not have anybody that wants to take a vacation on, in the cabin in the woods on the mountain. And you have to kind of make that work. So my first suggestion is you contact your local 4-H or local FFA. Okay. Future Farmers of America or 4-H. Usually between one of those two, you will have a kid that has experience on the farm, right? And we're wanting a high schooler. We want to meet the parents. We want the parents to meet us. We want everybody to be cool with the situation, right? We don't want to be this, weirdo that's like, hey, you want to come watch my farm? We want to make sure that the parents are on board. We want to make sure the kids are on board. We want to make sure that everybody agrees with what is happening. And so getting in contact with an FFA or a 4-H'er is hands down the best way to do this. Again, as long as the parents are on board and the kids on board and you're comfortable and everybody's happy. Next, and that's the route that I would go if I couldn't find anybody. Now, I'm very lucky. My neighbor down the road has no problem helping out with the animals. My neighbor up on the other side, he has no problem helping out. And I know enough people that I don't have to do this. But if all of that fell through, I would absolutely be contacting the local FFA or 4-H and just having them put out to the parents, hey, listen, I need a farm sitter for this many days. I would love to meet you and the child. I want to make sure mom and dad are cool with this. I want them here, and go from there. And I know I keep repeating it, but I want to make sure that everybody is on board with the responsibilities before we start getting going down a rabbit hole, right? The next thing is cost. And this is going to look so freaking different for every single person, every single farm, every single animal, it's all going to be different. So I don't want to say, this is a one size fits all approach. What I will say is on my farm, this could vary just between spring, summer, fall, and winter, right? We don't have normal HVAC. Okay, so we heat solely with firewood. That can create a problem if the person that's supposed to be coming out here doesn't know how to start a fire, right? Like that could be dangerous. And so we try not to travel too much in the winter. But obviously we've got Christmas coming. And so, that for some people that can be a problem. And then, summer is the height of canning season and height of the garden. So usually I'll give you an example and you can take this for what you will. My neighbors don't want payment. And my friend who came out, she didn't want payment. So I didn't have this problem. But if I was to have a 4-H or FFA come out, what I would do is I would say, okay, and again, this is an example, guys, just go with me here. I need my goats let out during the day, first thing in the morning. They need to be given hay. They need to be given fresh water. And at night, they need to be put up. So that's a twice a day chore, right? And then my chickens and ducks are the same way. They need to be let out in the morning. And they need to be put to bed at night. So that's a twice a day chore. Dogs need to be let out at least twice a day, preferably more. I would prefer people to spend the night at the house. That way the dogs can be let in and out as needed. Now, My dogs have iron bladders because we work 24/48s, and sometimes they're in their cages for 24 hours. Now, we usually have a neighbor come by and let them out real quick, let them, eat and drink, and then go back to bed. But we want to make sure that somebody is coming by multiple times a day to let the dog out. Dogs. And then that's really it. And then the garden, water it. If it didn't rain that day, if it didn't rain, water it. If it did rain, don't worry about it. Right. Harvest whatever you want, keep whatever you want. You can have as many eggs as you want, and, kind of sweeten the deal a little bit. And so depending on what is happening, and a lot of times these kids have farm pricing. They know exactly what their time is worth, and they are willing to earn it. Now, a single person doing farm chores on my farm takes about an hour and a half in the mornings and about an hour at night. It doesn't take that long, but it could, right? So I would be willing to pay $10 an hour for their work, right? So if, let's just use round figures, it takes them 3 hours a day. That's $30 a day times however many days I'm gone. We'll call it a week, right? So $30 a day times 7, that's $210. You cannot board a dog at a kennel for a week for $210. Okay. So that is worth it to me. Now, you're sweetening the pot because you're saying you can take home all the eggs, you can take home whatever veggies are ready. You can sweeten the pot like that, but the reality is if they're not spending the night, I kind of feel like $10 an hour is pretty fair. And then after that, you got to kind of really look at how much work are they going to be doing. Are they milking the goats? That requires a little bit more time, right? They got to hand milk the goats. They've got to strain the milk. They got to put the milk up. That can be another hour to 2 hours. So it really does depend on how much, you're willing to pay per hour. If they're spending the night at the house, I would say probably if they have the ability to come and go as they please, right? They can go to work, they can go to school, they can, whatever. And they're just doing morning chores, evening chores, spending the night. I wouldn't do an hourly rate, but I would consider, I don't know, $20, maybe $30 a night on top of the hourly rate would be pretty fair. Again, it's really your call. If all you have is chickens and some dogs, then okay, you kind of got to figure out how much work is truly involved in what you're doing. But definitely making sure that you have that idea so that when you come to this person, you say, hey, I need farm help, this many, these days, whatever. And then also the other thing is that if you're traveling for the holidays, that's time that they're going to spend away from their family too. Right? Like if you're saying, hey, I'm going to California for Christmas to visit family, and they're staying here to visit with their family or, whatever, they would like to spend Christmas with their family. And if they're at your house for however long, that does impede in their time. So just, a reasonable expectation and a reasonable payment of that time, I think is fair. The other thing is traveling with, in state, right? Sorry about that. The dog was getting ready to start barking. So if you're traveling within state, right? You may not need anybody to watch your animals, but you may have family that gets upset that, you got to leave by 5 o'clock because you got to get home by 6 so that you can let your dogs out and milk the cow, And so that can be frustrating, whether it's you or family, because they don't understand why you're rushing home when you're supposed to be spending time with family. It's the holidays. One of the things that I've recently had a conversation with my aunt about was if by the time Jared gets home from work, we get all the stuff done for the day that we need to get done, all the chores and that, we get it all done, and we're on the road, it takes us an hour and a half to get to family's house. And that's pretty much any family member. It takes about an hour and a half to get down to them. And then it's going to take an hour and a half to get home. Right. And so we don't want to be out until 9-10 o'clock at night, because that means that we're not going to get home until 11:30 midnight. And then we still have animals to put up, feed to give them, stuff like that. And that's not fair to us, and it's not fair to family. And the flip side to that is, if it takes me an hour and a half to get down to somebody, and by the time Jared gets home and we're ready to go, lunch is at 1, we leave the house 11 o'clock to make sure we have plenty of time. And everyone's clearing out and going home by 2, it's not worth it for us to come down for an hour. Again, gas is expensive, and that's time away from the farm that is, that we're not going to get back. And so we really have to consider the amount of time that we're going to be gone in both directions, right? Not just, okay, well, if we leave at 6 a.m. and we come home at midnight, that's a long time of being gone. We may need to have, our neighbor let the dogs out or put the goats up or whatever. But the flip side is also true. If by the time we can get down there, it's going to be, we're only going to be able to hang out for an hour, that is not worth it. No matter how much I want to see family or don't want to see family, like whatever the case may be, we really have to consider whether or not it's worth it for us to go down there. And you're going to have a lot of family members that try to guilt trip you into, well, why didn't you come down? Well, I'm sorry. By the time everything's all said and done, I'm going to spend an hour there and then come straight back home? No, sorry. Or again, the flip side, I have a cow to milk, or I've got goats to milk. I've got, other things that require my attention, and I'm sorry, I can't. And that's okay. I have yet, my family, maybe I'm lucky. My family is like, okay, that's fine. We get it, because for them to, and I'm very lucky, but they come up here to see me. I go down there to see them. They know how hard that drive is. That's an hour and a half one way. And no, it's not that far, but it is when you're tired. It is when it's dark. It is when there's a lot of traffic. Our particular highway from, Atlanta, or excuse me, it's not Atlanta, from Gwinnett County, right? You hit 85 and you come all the way up to 985, and then you basically go till 985 ends, and you just keep on fucking going, right? We are legitimately 45 minutes from the North Carolina border. So it is a haul, and it's not an easy drive to get to us. And so with that in mind, that's a hard drive. They know it's a hard drive. They know we have animals. At first it was a little difficult to get them to understand I have to go home so I can milk my goat, but they understood that, we're trying to do something here, and they've been really cool about it. And your family may not be. And that's something that you're going to have to take a hard stand on, and I wish you the best of luck with it. I got very lucky that my family is very understanding. We had babies born, and I forget what was happening, but we were having issues with the hawks. We were having issues with the hawks running off with the chickens. We were worried that the baby goats would get taken away with the hawks, and the vultures and all of that. And there for it was probably about a 3-month period, we didn't leave the homestead. We did not leave. I would go to work. Jared would be home. Jared would go to work. I would be home. The boys were almost always home. that way we could protect our animals, because we were having a lot of vultures circling. We were having a lot of hawks coming in and taking the chickens. We were having a lot of foxes and coyote issues. And so because of all that predator load pressure, it was very much, I'm sorry, I would love to hang out with you. I want to spend time with you, but I can't. And so hopefully your family is on board with it. And they understand. I mean, I know mine have been really cool with it. Some other things to consider when you're, homesteading and you're looking to travel is logistics, right? The logistics of now pre-homesteading. If you've never homesteaded, you never had chickens, you never had animals, you just, drop the dogs off at the vet's office or the kennel and went about your business, right? And it wasn't a big deal. When it comes to homesteading and traveling, it can be a logistical nightmare. When I tell you I have a lemon, and I'm not a control freak. I obviously prefer to be in control, but I'm not like absolutely, gonna have a meltdown if things don't go my way. Sometimes I will, but most of the time I don't. Homesteading can be a logistical nightmare. Now, when our friend came over and she watched the farm when we went to Yellowstone, I went ahead because I was sitting there typing out everything and how to take care of and what to do and all that. And I was like, this is going to be insane. Like, this is hard to understand because it's hard to type. And so what I did is I deleted half of it and I went downstairs and I took half-gallon mason jars and I filled them with electrolyte water, pre-made the electrolytes, put it in the jar, put it in a case. And basically on my notes for her, I said, give one of these a day to the boys, give one a day to the girls. Did the same thing with the grain and the alfalfa. She came over multiple times to check everything and see what I was doing. And that helped a lot. But yeah, the logistics of it can really get out of hand really quickly if you're not careful. But the big thing that I will say when it comes to the logistics, right as you go through your morning chores, especially if you don't want to forget something, as you go through, write down every single thing that you do and then type it up because, my handwriting is terrible. But type it up so that way that person that is watching your farm can read exactly what to do. And then when they come over, walk them through what it is that they will be doing. And that'll help a lot. It can be difficult. The one thing that I will say is that, I have my vet has my credit card on file so that if something happens, they can just go to the vet. They can take the animal to the vet. Having medications on hand. I have a protocol book where, if this happens, do this. If this happens, do that. Whole freaking 2-inch 3-ring binder that stays in the basement with all the medications. And I told her, this is the book. This is the Holy Grail. This is the thing. If you see this, do this. If you see this, do this. And the way that it's written out is really helpful for that. But making sure that dogs on medications, they know where the meds are. They know, you call your vet. Hey, I'm going out of town. I need to pick up extra medications, whatever. Making sure that all of those parts and pieces are complete. And just cover the bases. I don't know how else to say that. Just cover the bases. It'll be okay. I would always, and I'm one of those people, I clean before we leave and I clean when we get home. And I'm not doing a thorough deep clean of the entire house before we go on vacation, but I do make sure that, the floors are vacuumed and mopped real good, especially if I've got somebody coming over, because I don't want them to have to deal with that. I make sure the sink is clean, the dishes are done, the laundry is done, because I don't want to come home and have to do those things, right? I don't want to have to come home from a week in Yellowstone and have not only all the laundry from Yellowstone to do, but all the laundry that I left behind to do as well. I want to make sure that when I come home, I am coming home to a mostly clean house, right? Because the farm sitter was here, and we don't know if they're super amazing about cleaning up after themselves or they're total slobs. I don't know. I would like to make sure that at least my laundry is good to go when I get back. Another thing, harvest as much of your garden as you can prior to leaving, but also understand that you're going to miss stuff, and that's what happens when you go on vacation in the summer in the garden. It is what it is. Do the best you can, work with what you got, and move on. Give yourself some grace. Peppers and tomatoes can be frozen. Squash can be frozen-ish. I don't know that I would recommend it. Hens, when you're getting your eggs, I tell them you can have all the eggs you want. There's no way in hell I'm going to be able to eat them when I come back. And then also the other thing is that if they come, if they say, well, I don't really like squash, you can say, okay, throw it to the pigs, throw it to the chickens. That's fine. And then just make sure that, the person that is coming to your farm understands what the expectations that you have of them, and allow them to say, I can meet that or I can't meet that. And if they cannot meet it, it's really question whether or not it's an expectation that has to happen, right? For example, if they tell you, I'm not comfortable milking a goat, right? And this goat still has a baby on her, you do a kid share where, you separate mama and baby at night, and, you milk in the morning, and then the baby gets mama the rest of the day. If that's what's happening, put the baby with the mama. Let the baby do its job. And then you don't have to milk. That is an expectation. You expect them to milk, and they tell you, I am not going to milk this goat. And you're like, okay, what is that a make or break deal, right? If the baby is gone and you don't have a baby to nurse off of that animal, you may have to consider drying her off, or calling a friend and saying, hey, can you come milk this goat, twice a day or whatever it is. Those are expectations that you are going to lay out, and they are going to respond to, and you have to make the decision on whether or not that's something you're okay with. And sometimes it is as simple as putting the baby back on the mama and being done, and then separating again when you get back home. Is it ideal? No, but it's reality. Let's work with what we got. The other thing that it's the last thing that I'm going to say when it comes to traveling when you homestead is enjoy it. I know that's hard, and I know that a lot of brand new homesteaders and control freaks, because it's just what you like. It's how you are. I am no longer a control freak because I've been homesteading for a while, and nothing ever goes according to plan. Nothing. Not a single thing goes according to plan, and that helps break that control freak cycle. But enjoy it. Enjoy your time with your family. Enjoy your time away from your family if that's what you're into. But really understand that it's okay to take breaks from homesteading. It's okay to go on vacation. It's okay to not want to homestead 365 for the rest of your life. That is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But you have taken on these animals, and you have taken on these responsibilities, and you need to care for that, even if it doesn't, rule your entire life. But again, enjoy it. Enjoy your trip. What I do, or what we try to do, bless you, Bear, is fall and winter is when we try to take vacation, if we're going to take vacation, because fall and winter, there's not as much going on the farm. I don't usually have any kiddings happening. I usually don't have a huge garden to process and, harvest and all that. That's the time to be slow and enjoy. And so that's when I recommend that you take your vacations, but I also understand the draw of the beach in the summer. So take it for what you will. Enjoy it. Again, make sure you hit that subscribe button, or sign up to receive our emails. And we will be in touch next week. Y'all have a good day.